Bet365 sponsors our podcast and features over 300,000 sporting events on their betting app. It's got everything you'll ever need to bet on sport. It's Chelsea versus Manchester United this Monday. Are Chelsea going to avenge the 4-0 defeat they suffered at Old Trafford on the opening weekend, or will Odion Ighalo make an immediate impact for United? With Bet365 Bet Builder, you can combine match results, players to score, number of goals and more to build your own personalised bet. Bet365 is the world's favourite online sports betting company. The app can be downloaded from Google Play and Apple App Store. Over 18s only, and please gamble responsibly. Hi folks, welcome to another episode of the 59th Minute FPL podcast, brought to you by The Athletic. I'm Mark McGettigan, better known these days as FPL General. This week's episode is going to be a Wildcard special because I've hit the button on Saturday and Game Week 27 is still a long way away. We've still got games to go this weekend from Game Week 26. So rather than preview Game Week 27, I'm going to use this week's episode to do a special on the Wildcard, and then I'll be back on Tuesday with a preview to Game Week 27. All our podcasts are free in all the usual places, but if you'd like to hear ad-free versions, then you can subscribe to The Athletic with a 40% discount using the code FPLPOD. The structure of this episode is going to be, I'm going to go through a couple of wildcard tips. First of all, whether you're on your wildcard this week or not, this is useful for whenever you do decide to play it, or even for next season. Then I'm going to discuss what my first wildcard draft looks like, which players I've put in there, and then I'm going to finish by tackling a few questions from Twitter. So first of all, a few tips. I wrote an article on The Athletic a couple of weeks ago, so I'm just going to touch on a few of the points that I highlighted there. Just, general tips for wildcarding and how best to do so. So the first thing you should do, once you're 100% sure that you're going to wildcard, you should do it early in a game week. So in my case, I decided last week that I was going to wildcard for Game Week 27. So as soon as that Game Week 26 deadline passed on Saturday, I hit the button then. And the idea to doing it early, it's to protect your team value. It's to try and give yourself as much cash as possible to build that wildcard squad when it comes to finalising it. So a couple of tips for that. You want to use placeholders. So when I activated my wildcard at the weekend, I put in a few players that are likely to rise in price over the next 2 weeks. Now, they're not necessarily players that I want to have in my wildcard squad, but the hope there is that you can bring in a player who's likely to rise in price, and you would hope that they would rise twice in price, so you could bank 0.1 million profit. So let's say a player goes and scores a hat-trick on Friday night. Let's say Raul Jimenez scores a hat-trick on Friday night against Leicester. Even if I don't want him in my wildcard squad, I would put him in there for 5 or 6 days, because there's a good chance he might rise twice in price after scoring a hat-trick. If he does rise twice in price, then I can remove him. Then I've got an extra 0.1 million to spend for my new wildcard squad. So a website that is very useful when it's useful all season, but more so when you're using your wildcard, is FPLstatistics.com. So this is a price prediction website. It predicts which players are likely to rise in price soon. It also predicts which players are likely to fall in price soon. So you've got to monitor that with your wildcard squad. Likewise, if there's a player that's likely to fall in price, if you look at that website and someone is close to minus 100, that suggests that they might fall in price. So let's say there's a player that you want and they're likely to fall in price over the week. Let's say Teemu Pukki. Let's say you want him in your wildcard squad, but he's likely to fall in price. So you wouldn't put him into your wildcard draft until the last minute in the hope that you can get him for 0.1 million cheaper. So that's the key. If you activate early, you can put yourself in the best position then to have as much cash possible to build that wildcard squad. A very important thing to understand when you're wildcarding is to understand what current price is, what selling price is, and what purchase price is. So once you hit the wildcard button, the first two things you should do are go to FPLstatistics.com to have a look at the market to see which players are going to rise and fall. And then you should go to the transfers page on the FPL website and click on list view. So go to transfers and then click on list view. It shows you what you bought, what you paid for your players, what price you can get for selling your players, and what the current price of those players are. So CP is the current price, so that's the market price. If you don't have that player, that's what you're going to have to pay for them.
The SP, that's your selling price. So that's what you'll get if you decide to sell that player. And the PP, that's your purchase price. So that tells you what you paid for that player a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, whenever it was. So you really need to understand what those three things are before you start chopping and changing your team. So as an example of that, just looking at I'm on my transfers page here in front of me, and I've clicked on list view. So an example is I've got the Brighton reserve goalkeeper in my squad. So I had the Matt Ryan button double up. So one of the first things I did when I hit my wildcard button on Saturday, I got rid of Matt Ryan because there's no chance he's going to rise in price. He may even fall. And I replaced him with Alex McCarthy because McCarthy is 4.4 million. He will be 4.5 million at some point soon. So I've got rid of Ryan, who may fall in price. I've got in McCarthy, who's likely to rise in price. That doesn't mean McCarthy's 100% going to be in my wildcard squad. But if I do decide that he is, at least I've got him at 4.4 instead of 4.5 next week. But a good example of understanding what these terms mean, I've also got the reserve keeper button, and I haven't removed him yet because when I look at my purchase price, I paid 4 million for him. His current price is 3.9, so he's dropped 0.1 since I've bought him. But when I look at FPL statistics, Button, there is a chance that he could rise back up to 4 million at some point over the next 2 weeks. So there's no point in me getting rid of him just yet, because if I just wait another 5, 6, 7 days, if he goes back up to 4 million, then I can sell him for 4 million. Whereas if I got rid of him on Saturday, or if I get rid of him today, I'm only going to get 3.9 million. So always keep these little things in mind, looking at your list view on the transfers page. Another good example on the opposite side of that would be Jamie Vardy. My purchase price for Jamie Vardy was 9.4 million. His current price, so his market price, is 9.8 million, and my selling price would be 9.6 million. So if I decided today just to ship out Jamie Vardy, I would get 9.6. But if, when it comes to finalising my wildcard squad and I decide I want to get him back, I'm going to have to pay more. I'm going to have to pay the market price, which is 9.8 million. So you've got to be very careful with players that you may want to keep in your wildcard. You don't sell them unless you're 100% sure that you don't want them. So the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Jamie Vardy, Salah, De Bruyne, Grealish, all these players are still in my squad. I haven't got rid of them because most likely I'm going to keep them, or else, I'm 50-50. So Jamie Vardy is a good example. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep him on my wildcard squad, but I'm not going to remove him until I know, because as I said, if I remove him today, I get 9.6. If I decide tomorrow I want him back, I'm going to have to pay 9.8. So I've cost myself some of my budget there. So you've just got to be careful. Basically, you've got to protect your team value while your wildcard is active. I've mentioned there, don't sell players that you might want to keep. The caveat to that is if they're going to fall in price. So let's say Danny Ings, I've just brought him in. I brought him in for Game Week 26. So I bought him for 7. His current price is still 7 million. If it was a case that it looked like Danny Ings was going to fall to 6.9, then I could just get rid of him today, and then maybe in 3 days' time he drops to 6.9. So even though I want Danny Ings, I would remove him for a couple of days, and then I could possibly get him back for 0.1 million cheaper in a couple of days' time. That's just an example. Ings is obviously not going to fall in price there. A good example here as well is John Lundstrom. So again, one of the first things I did on Saturday when I activated my wildcard was I got rid of most of my defenders, including Lundstrom. So I bought Lundstrom for 4 million at the start of the season. His current price, I think, is 5 million. So I sold him for 4.5 million on Saturday. Then, of course, he goes and scores a goal from the bench. So some people in my scenario might think, maybe I shouldn't have sold him. Maybe I want to keep him now. I'm not in that camp. I still want to get rid of him because he's not guaranteed to start every week, even though he scored at the weekend. But that's a good example. If I sold Lundstrom on Saturday, then he goes and scores and I decide I want him back, that would be bad news for me, because I would have sold him for 4.5 on Saturday. Then he goes and scores. I would have to pay 5 million today if I wanted to get him back in. So keep all that in mind with your wildcard. Understand what those terms mean, your current price, your purchase price, and your selling price, and use FPL statistics as a guide to the market. One last tip here as well before I move on to my current draft. Get in the players early that you think you're going to want on your wildcard squad if they are likely to rise in price. So when I look at FPL statistics on Saturday, I seen that the likes of Van Dijk, Lascelles, Enda Stevens at Sheffield United and Jack Stevens at Southampton. All 4 of those are on the first page on FPL statistics, which suggests all 4 of them are likely to rise in price before the Game Week 27 deadline. Now, they're 4 players that have a very good chance of being in my wildcard squad. So I've put them in early. I've got rid of the likes of Lundstrom, Soyuncu, Rico and Kelly. And in my current, my current placeholders are Trent, he stays there, and the other 4 have changed. So Van Dijk, Lascelles, Stevenson, the 2 Stevens are in there now, because if it comes to the Game Week 27 deadline and I want those guys, it's better that I've got them at the cheaper price. I've got Stevens at Southampton at 4.4, good chance he's going to be 4.5 by the time I finalise my wildcard squad. Things like that. Van Dijk is 6.5, good chance he'll be 6.6 by the time I finalise my squad. So get in the players early that look like they're going to rise in price, that you want for your wildcard squad, because you don't want to hold off and activate your wildcard next week closer to the deadline and have to pay more, because that you can be 0.1, 0.2 short of a player that you really want then. Don't endlessly tinker with your squad. So don't transfer in players, transfer out players constantly every day while you're on a wildcard. So the way I've got it now, I've got a template squad, and that won't really get changed until I finalise my squad. So when I'm tinkering, coming up with different squads, building different squads, different ideas, I'm doing it on the transfers page and I'm taking screenshots. I'm not actually confirming my transfers, because if I just endlessly tinker, Vardy in, Vardy out, Salah in, Salah out, you're going to destroy your team value. So when you're playing around with a new squad, do it on the transfers page, but don't actually confirm your transfers. So if I'm playing around with things today, no matter what happens, I go back to my default squad tonight with the likes of Van Dijk, Lascelles, Stevens and all these guys, because they're there to protect my team value until I finalise my squad. So hopefully that makes sense. I know wildcard and team value, all that kind of stuff, it's quite hard to get your head around. It's quite a hard thing to explain on a podcast as well. If you are an Athletic subscriber though, go back and check that article, how to use your wildcard properly, that I put there up there a couple of weeks ago. Moving on now to my first wildcard draft. So as I mentioned, I wildcarded on Saturday and I put a quick squad together and I took a screenshot of it, because usually there's only 1 week to build your wildcard squad. Because I'm doing it during the winter break, I've got 2 weeks, so that's a lot of time for your thoughts to change and to overthink things. So I wanted to take a screenshot of my first squad, so that in 2 weeks time, when I'm finalising my wildcard squad or next Friday, that I can refer back to that initial draft and see how much it's changed, and just ask myself, why has it changed, and why are those gut instincts, those first players I've put in, why are they not there anymore? Have I overthought it, or what are the reasons why it's changed, and are they justifiable changes? So because it's an odd time to wildcard, we still got a lot of games to play to get through for Game Week 26. So I put this initial first squad together, I put my placeholders in place, and I haven't touched it since Saturday. And I'm going to try and avoid doing any playing around with it until all the games in Game Week 26 are finished, or at least until Monday before that Manchester City game on Wednesday, because so much changes in FPL over a short space of time. I could spend hours and hours this week playing around with squads, and then injuries occur, suspensions occur at the weekend, fixture schedules change. There's another storm coming at the weekend, which is worrying for fixtures. So for me, it's a waste of time to tinker this week. So that's why I'm just waiting until all the fixtures are finished in Game Week 26, and then I'll have a proper go at it and have a proper look at things. So I'm going to run through here what my first draft was. So it'll be interesting to refer back to this on next week's podcast to see how much has it changed. A question I got on Twitter as well was, why have I wildcarded now? I should probably address that now before I go through my squad. The main reason why I've wildcarded now is quite simply, I don't like my team. I haven't done so for quite a few weeks. I wildcarded Game Week 20 and I think I got 5 or 6 red arrows, right at one after the other. I managed to get a green one last game week, but there's just a lot of players on my team I don't like. There's probably about 8 or 9 changes I'm going to make. There was a question as well, how many changes do you think are justified to activate the wildcard? I always think if you would make 6 or 7 changes, then I think the wildcard should be at least thought about. For me, I think I'm going to make about 8 or 9. So for me, it feels like a good time to do so, freshen up things. Also, my rank is not where I want it to be. I'm around 250k, at the moment. Now, if my rank was better, maybe if I was top 50k or top 10k, maybe I'd be more inclined to be a bit more patient with the wildcard this season. But for me, I want to take action and I want to try and climb, over the last third of the season, rather than waiting until, the last 2 or 3 game weeks to play the wildcard and the bench boost. The players that, I didn't want anymore, the Ryan Mutton double up in goals, I don't want them anymore. Brighton don't keep many clean sheets. Soyuncu's been useless for me. Lundstrom, I want to get rid of him because he's not going to start every week. Rico and Kelly, they explain themselves. Calvert-Lewin, I was considering getting rid of as well, but there's a question mark over him now because he did really well for me in Game Week 26. Oriol Romeu on my bench as well is going to go. And then I've got question marks over Vardy and Jack Grealish as well. I don't know if those two will survive my wildcard squad. So overall, I could end up making 10 changes easily by the time next Friday comes around. So that was the reason for it. Very unhappy with a lot of those players. Just wanted to clear out the deadwood. And, I'm potentially looking at a bench boost, an early bench boost as well. I've always tended to play my wildcard late in seasons and bench boost late in the season as well. A popular strategy this season, I think, will be wildcard 36, bench boost 37. But, I've mentioned quite a few times, for me, I feel that it's pretty late. And I just want to try something different this season. Going into this season, I wanted to be open with my approach to the chips and to the wildcard. So I'm going to try an earlier one and see how it goes. So the first draft that I put together on Saturday, and this hasn't changed because, as I say, I'm not going to tinker too much until Game Week 26 is complete. Now, there's not too many surprises in here. Goalkeepers, Dean Henderson and McCarthy, which I think is going to be a very popular double up for the rest of the season. The back five I've already mentioned. So Trent Alexander-Arnold is the only defender who is going to survive the wildcard cull. I've got Willy Bolly in there from Wolves, John Egan, Sheffield United, Jack Stevens, Southampton, and I've got Lascelles from Newcastle. I've also midfield, Salah and De Bruyne are not going to go anywhere. Salah's definitely not going anywhere. I'll probably have a play around with 1 or 2 drafts that don't have De Bruyne, but most likely I'll just keep him. Son is probably going to survive. I've had him for the last couple of game weeks and I would like to hold on to him. Also in midfield, I've got Traore and I've got Hayden then from Newcastle just as a 4.3 million bench fodder. Up front then, Vardy, who I'm not sure about. Danny Ings will stay and Jimenez may come back in. Now, a couple of bullet points here from that squad. The most obvious one is there's only 2 Liverpool players there, Trent and Salah. That won't be the case when it comes to my final squad. I will have 3 Liverpool players. The question will be, who goes in alongside Trent and Salah? Is it another defender or will it be Sadio Mane? And that was one of the reasons I waited until Game Week 27 to wildcard rather than 26, because I wanted to see, Mane. I wanted to get an update on Mane's fitness. I wanted to see him back on the pitch. So with a wildcard, I've got the option of going back to the Salah Mane double up, but I think most likely I'll probably end up going double defence with either Van Dijk or Robertson, just for budget reasons and to fit in all the other players that I want in there. There's only 6 survivors, so Trent, Salah, De Bruyne, Son, Vardy and Ings would be 6 players that would survive. And as I said, there's question marks over Vardy, so it may only be 5 survivors, so that would be 10 changes in total. Another thing to take away from that one is blank Game Week 28. So Sheffield United and Manchester City blank in Game Week 28. I've got Henderson and Egan in that squad, as well as Kevin De Bruyne. So that would be 3 players who blank in 28. I think 3 is fine because number one of them's a goalkeeper. So I would just play McCarthy that week and then bench De Bruyne and Egan. And that would still leave me with 1 playing substitute and obviously a couple of free transfers before then as well. So obviously you've got to keep these blank game weeks 28 and 31 in mind if you're wildcarding this week or anytime soon. Another big question, I've mentioned it already, Vardy, Ings, Jimenez was the front line I put together on Saturday for my first draft, but then Calvert-Lewin went and did really well for me in Game Week 26. So it's going to be very hard to drop Calvert-Lewin given the form he's in. And Everton are playing quite well and they're scoring plenty of goals. The issue is fixtures. Everton have Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea and Liverpool in their next 4. So it's a classic case of form versus fixtures. I'm usually pretty loyal to players who perform well for me. So in that case, I think there's a good chance I'll end up holding on to Calvert-Lewin despite the fixtures and just trust him to continue his good form. He really helps with the budget as well. So I've probably got 4 strikers to fit into 3 spots. I've got Vardy, Ings, Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin, so it's probably pick 3 of those 4. Danny Ings is probably going to stay. I really want to get Jimenez back because I want the Wolves triple up. Jimenez, Traore and the defender. So if I went Jimenez, Ings, Calvert-Lewin, if I went Calvert-Lewin instead of Vardy, that would probably allow Mane instead of a Liverpool defender or just an upgrade elsewhere. So that is something I'm going to have to chew on for the next week. Calvert-Lewin, does he stay or does he go? I've just noted down a few players here as well that are not in that first draft, but players that I'm very much interested in. A couple of defenders, Serge Aurier and Charlie Taylor from Burnley. I like Charlie Taylor because he's very cheap and he's guaranteed fixtures in 28 and 31, and they're decent fixtures as well. John Fleck, if I play a bench boost, which I'll talk more about when it comes to the questions, I like Fleck for that. A couple of differentials then. I'm probably going to look for 1 or 2 differentials in my wildcard squad, and I think 2 of the most likely candidates are midfielders, Harvey Barnes at Leicester or Nathan Redmond at Southampton. So I like both of those. It may even be a case of maybe going for Redmond for a week or 2 and then, with a view to moving him to Harvey Barnes, or I may just go with Harvey Barnes from the outset. But I definitely think there's a good chance I'll include a player like that, who's got very low ownership, but, has the potential to be explosive with some good fixtures ahead. Another striker as well. I've said I've probably got 4 strikers to choose from. I really like Jay Rodriguez as well. I was very impressed by him against Arsenal. I think he's only 5.7 million. I need to investigate how much longer Ashley Barnes is going to be out for. But if Barnes was going to be out for another couple of weeks, Jay Rodriguez as a cheap third striker, someone who plays in blank game week 31 as well is on my mind, but most likely he won't make it because I prefer those other 4 strikers that I mentioned. So that is my first draft, and a couple of players I'm interested in as well, and just a few thoughts. So I will return to that draft on next Tuesday's podcast with an updated version, and we'll see what has changed after game week 26. Stitch Fix is an online personal styling service that takes the work out of dressing well. It's a fun and light touch. To get started, go to stitchfix.co.uk/athletic, fill in a style quiz and tell Stitch Fix about your personal style and aesthetic, budget, size and shape, fit challenges, clothing needs and wants. A personal stylist will send you 5 items of clothing, each hand-picked for you from Stitch Fix's selection of 100 brands, including established names, cool emerging designers, and exclusive brands you won't find anywhere else. Try on everything at home, style with other items in your wardrobe, buy what you love, and send back the rest. Get started with Stitch Fix today and support our podcast by going to stitchfix.co.uk/athletic. That's stitchfix.co.uk/athletic. Thanks to everyone who sent in the questions on Twitter. I've picked out some of the best ones here. First one came in from Chris Tan. Chris asks, is the plan to wildcard this week to enable you to bank a transfer in game week 28, which will give you 2 free transfers in game week 29 when game week 31 information will be clearer, and with the intention of using the bench boost in game week 29? I do have my eye on it. I'm not 100% set on doing it, but I do like to play the bench boost chip shortly after a wildcard, simply because it's easier to get your bench players with decent fixtures rather than having to scramble to make transfers to do so. Game week 29 is, I think it's a good game week for bench boost because there's a couple of good fixtures there. So Southampton play Newcastle, and Wolves are at home to Brighton, and Sheffield United are home to Norwich. So those are the teams that you're probably looking to your bench boost for. So if I take that draft that I put together, the bench boost would be something like McCarthy and Stevens, the 2 Southampton guys, at home to Newcastle. Lascelles as well, so you're probably hoping for a 0-0 in that game for the bench boost. And then I've got Hayden as well from Newcastle, but if I was playing a bench boost in 29, I wouldn't really want Hayden because I wouldn't expect anything more than 2 points from him. So if I do decide to bench boost in 29, or at least plan to bench boost in 29 when I wildcard this week, I think I'd be looking to improve Hayden to someone like John Fleck. I just think it's much more likely that John Fleck is going to get you 10 points in a bench boost than Hayden is. Hayden's probably only going to get 2 points, and Hayden, his place could be under threat now anyway. You could have a bench boost of 2 Southampton guys, McCarthy and Stevens, and you could have 2 Sheffield United guys as well. You could go for Fleck, and you could go for a defender, someone like Egan or O'Connell or Stevens. So I do like that idea. I've never had much luck with bench boost in double game weeks. I think last season, I only got 11 points from a bench boost, even though all 4 of them played twice. So I think it's probably an overrated chip anyway, and it's not something I'm going to stress over too much. I'm probably going to set up my wildcard 27. It's probably going to set up naturally anyway that it's going to look decent for a bench boost in 29. I always try to bank a transfer the week after a wildcard. So wildcard 27, bank my transfer 28, and then I've got 2 frees for 29 to, if something goes wrong, if I've got an injury or a suspension, I've got them 2 free transfers to fix things if I want to go ahead with the bench boost in that game week. What I like, I've mentioned it before as well, what I like about playing the bench boost early, if I play bench boost in game week 29, from game week 30 onwards then, right through to the end of the season, I can focus all my attention on my starting 11. I won't be forced into boring transfers, because of bench boost. So yeah, I like the idea of using it early and getting it out of the way. As I said, if I had a bench boost of McCarthy, Stevens, and maybe Fleck and Egan or something like that, I'd be quite confident that could do quite well. If you got 1 clean sheet out of that, 1 attack and return from one of the defenders, you're probably looking at 20 points. And I think that would be, a very successful bench boost. So for me, my plan is to do it in 29, but it's not a plan I'm tied to. If I arrive at game week 29 and I've run into a few issues, or it's just not looking as good as it is now, I'll just hold off and I'll do it probably in a double game week later in the season. Even if I only have 2 or 3 players on my bench who play, but if they have 2 fixtures, that in theory that's probably better than doing it in a single game week. But for me, I'm just going to go for it. As I said, my approach at the start of the season was be open with the chips and be open to trying something different. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up wildcard with a view to bench boosting in 29. The key message here is I'm not playing my wildcard just to bench boost in 29. That's important. Don't play your wildcard just because you want to use your bench boost the week after or 2 weeks after. Use your wildcard for the right reasons. Don't use it just for the bench boost chip. Question from Chris as well. How are you going to balance the squad so you have a decent team for blank game 28, bench boost 29, and yet be able to field 9+ players in blank game 31? FPL Dave had a similar question here as well. As an early wildcarder, what are your plans for blank game week 31? So blank game week 31 it's shaping up to be a very small game week. We may only have 3 or 4 fixtures in that game week. It looks like free hit will be a logical time to use free hit. But for me, I think the key for me on wildcard and anyone on a wildcard, you've got to stay flexible because we don't have all the information yet. So for me, I think my free hit chip this season is going to quite simply come down to Liverpool, whether they qualify for the next round of the FA Cup or if they get knocked out. So if Liverpool do feature in game week 31, I don't think I'll bother using my free hit chip then, because if Liverpool do play, I'll have triple Liverpool. I'm going to have triple Wolves. That's 6 players already. I'll probably include a Burnley player on my wildcard, either Charlie Taylor or possibly Nick Pope instead of Dean Henderson to go alongside McCarthy. I'm not 100% on Dean Henderson. I may go for the defenders instead there from Sheffield United. Let's say I went for Charlie Taylor, triple Wolves, triple Liverpool. That is 7 players. And I'd also have 4 free transfers between now and then. So I don't think the free hit chip would be worth it if Liverpool have a fixture in that game week. Now, it's a different story if Liverpool have a blank game week, because then the fixtures are going to be atrocious. We're going to probably only have, most of us are probably only going to have 4 or 5 players. But again, 4 or 5 players plus probably 4 transfers, so you can prepare for it. The option then would be just use the free hit chip and not have to worry about 31, or just bin off that game week. If it's a case that there's only 3 fixtures and they're terrible fixtures, I would happily just have 4, 5, 6 players, and keep the free hit chip for a double game week where there's probably a lot more gain to be made, as opposed to using it for just three games. So again, it's about staying flexible, and my wildcard squad will be a flexible squad that I can maneuver 28 and 31. Question from FPL Newton Heath: which Wolves defender to go for on a wildcard, Willy Bolly or Matt Doherty? So Bolly is in my first draft. He's 4.7 million. Doherty is a lot more expensive. He's 6.1 million. Now, if cash was no object, Doherty would be probably the first name in my wildcard squad, just because every time I watch Wolves, he's bombing forward, he's getting himself into the 6-yard box. He should have more attacking returns than he does this season. I like their fixtures. They've got Norwich in 27 at home, they've got Brighton at home in 29, and then they've got West Ham and Bournemouth 30 and 31. So Wolves are very attractive because they have that fixture in 31, but also they've got good fixtures, and also they're a very good team. So I'm pretty set on a Wolves triple up. I don't have any Wolves players at all at the moment, which is another factor in me activating the wildcard to get them. So I'm going to get Jimenez, probably Traore as well, and a defender. So most likely Bolly for budget reasons, but if I can find the cash, or I have cash left over, Doherty will be in my squad if I can manage it. I think he's the better option. Question from Essential Acid: have the tides changed for the Lord? He's referring to Lundstrom here. He says keep or let go. So I'm letting Lundstrom go on wildcard because I don't think we can rely on him anymore, even though I got a very unlikely 7 points from him at the weekend. I started him over Rico at the weekend. I knew there was a chance Lundstrom wouldn't start, but I also knew that there was a chance, Rico usually gets 0, -1 or 1. So, Lundstrom was probably going to match him by just coming off the bench for 1 point anyway. So I just thought, even with a half an hour, Lundstrom can do something, which he did. So that turned out to be a good decision, but I'm still going to get rid of him because I'd rather have a player who I know is going to play every week. Sheffield United, defender, Newcastle, Southampton. There's loads of teams, Wolves with good fixtures. So Lundstrom for me is gone because, quite simply, in FPL, I want players who are going to play every week and play 90 minutes if possible. And Lundstrom, he may well come back into the starting 11 now in game week 27 after he scored his goal, but there's no guarantee thereafter that he's going to play. There's a lot of competition for places there now. Lundstrom's played a lot of games this season. Maybe he's starting to that's maybe taking its toll on him, and we may see more rotation there. So for me, it's a sell. I think it's, if you're not on a wild card, it's probably fine to keep him one more week and see if he does start against Brighton. It's a good fixture. But then, I'd probably be looking to let him go then afterwards. Question from Darryl B: with Sheffield United likely to have 2 blanks in 4 game weeks, are you still going to have a defender from their team on your wildcard? So Sheffield United have 28 and 31. So they're definitely blanking in 28, and they're very likely to blank in 31 as well. So that is 2 game weeks out of 4 that they will miss. So that is a big question for my wildcard as well. How many Sheffield United players do I go for because of that? So for me, I'm unlikely to go for a triple up. It'll be most likely 2, maybe even only 1. But I think with bench boost in mind, I like John Fleck for the bench boost. So it'll probably be 1 defender and John Fleck. If I do go for that. So most likely for me, yes, I will have at least 1 Sheffield United defender, most likely 2 Sheffield United players. So I don't think I'll go for the triple up. That just feels too much now with those 2 blanks coming up. The reason I'm still going for Sheffield United players because around those blanks they've got very good fixtures. 27 home to Brighton, 29 home to Norwich, and 30 away to Newcastle. So 3 very good fixtures in and around their blanks there. Question from Kevin Bader: Richarlison, yes or no? Richarlison, he's not really in my thoughts for wildcard, quite simply because of Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin is 2 million cheaper and he's performing very, very well. So I don't see any reason to pay 2 million extra to get Richarlison when I can just keep Calvert-Lewin on my wildcard. So, a lot of people a few people, I've seen a few people going for the Calvert-Lewin Richarlison double up a couple of weeks ago and doing really well out of it. But for me, the double up is not an option. And with those fixtures, as I mentioned, for Everton, they're not great on paper. So it's either keep Calvert-Lewin or go with no Everton players. That's my current thinking. Thanks as always for the questions. Hopefully you found this podcast useful, whether you're on a wildcard or not. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Good luck for the rest of Game Week 26. Looking forward to the weekend. We've got games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then I'll be back on Tuesday with a preview to Game Week 27. Have a good one.